Well, hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. And I'm out on my Kawasaki Z900RS SE. And the first video that I made, I was riding around Seattle, sort of a bit of urban riding, talking a little bit about why I wanted to jump back into the modern classic category, but this time the Japanese version, not the British version, which I had before, the Triumph. And then very specifically, why the Inline 4 is something that's becoming more fun for me as I get older and as I tend to appreciate smoothness on the street and angriness on the track. So now I'm out in Eastern Washington, and you can tell that the environment's a little bit different to what I had in Seattle. I actually rode down the freeway this morning, and maybe I'll show some of that footage later, but freeway riding is kind of boring. What I will tell you is that for me, at 6 foot tall, 210 pounds, the fact that this is a naked with no windscreen or wind protection, honestly, I was really impressed with how the bike felt. It felt very satisfying. I'm running the Shoei helmet, it's the RF 1400, sorry. And it's really good. It's really good with a naked bike, actually. Definitely wouldn't want to have a helmet with a peak on it or anything like that in this situation. And in terms of the ride, the bike is it just pulls really well. It has a very satisfying feel to it. And so now I'm out here in Eastern Washington. The landscape's a little bit different. A little bit of a curvy neighborhood ride here. The speed limit's only 15 miles per hour, so I'm taking it pretty easy. But you can see that the sun is shining. And I'm going to take you for some back roads and some riding out here, and not so many twisties. Maybe you'll find a few, but really just that sort of open country road environment, which is obviously very different for the first video. One of the things I really appreciate also about the Inline 4 is that it doesn't get too hot like a twin tends to get. So it's really nice to just have that smoothness, that calmness. But the other thing is that this bike likes to get angry. Like, it's no slouch. So don't be fooled by the upright riding position and the modern classic kind of look and feel of it. If it wants to get angry, it can get quite angry. How's the scenery? You might see some wildlife. Often see wildlife down here. Deer, elk, seen a few bears. Also, a bunch of you made some comments on the first video I made on this bike. Thanks for that. Some really good, engaging comments, thoughts. A lot of really happy owners of this bike. And also a few locals from the Pacific Northwest said g'day. So g'day to all of you, and maybe I'll see you out on the road sometime. And later on I'm going to take you to Lake Cle Elum, which is a beautiful lake. We'll ride up around the edge of that, take a look at some of the scenery.
So look, the Pacific Northwest is a really beautiful place to ride. You can ride in all sorts of different environments, from these sort of deep green, beautiful forested areas and rainforests right through to the Eastern Washington Desert. And we're starting actually over in Cle Elum and heading towards the eastern side of Washington State, and then headed back into the Cascade Mountains. But what a beautiful place to start. Now, in terms of the bike, I haven't done that much to it yet. All I've really done is I've put on a tank bag. I have played around a little bit with the angle of the bars, but I have a full system on order for it just to sort of open it up a little bit. I'll plan to put a tune on it at some point. I have put rear passenger rails on it. And that's about it, because this RS version is super well set up. There's really not much I really need to do to it, frankly. So come along with me. We're going to head for part 2 of this ride, and I think we should probably get some gas before we start.
Filling the bike up with some good old-fashioned premium gasoline, or petrol as we call it back home. And that will be setting me back about $5.20 a gallon, which ain't cheap. But I'm going to reset my trip meter as well and just see how far we get on that tank of gas. And you'll notice here I also have my trusty SW Motec tank bag, which comes with this fancy little lock here, which just connects on here, makes life nice and easy. Cash, all that fun stuff, zips up. This one is waterproof, so that's helpful. Now the temperature is around 88 degrees Fahrenheit. So what would that be in Celsius, I hear you ask? Well, it's about 33 degrees Celsius. So yeah, she's pretty toasty. But you'll also notice that I am wearing my full levers, and it's probably worth doing a whole separate video on why I wear full levers. I do have textile as well, but I prefer full levers. And it's probably worth the question, well, why are you wearing full levers when it's 33 degrees Celsius out, Angus? Well, the answer for that is I would rather be what is perceived to be hot and alive than what is perceived to be cool and either not alive or now really injured in some horrible way. I am riding today to a place called Blewett Pass, and I'll then be following that road, that highway, all the way to a place called Leavenworth, which I have actually featured on my videos in the past. And Leavenworth's kind of like this old Bavarian town. Well, it's an old town that is now themed in the sort of the style of an old Bavarian town. So, you know, it's a very American thing to do. But this place is actually done with a decent amount of taste. So depending on how we're doing for time, I might stop there. And we'll be passing over the Stevens Pass area, which is part of the famous Cascade Loop here in Washington State. I've ridden that a few times on different videos as well. But you know, let's get back to the question of gear. So I've done a lot of riding. I once rode a Harley Davidson from Seattle to New York and back. Yeah, you heard me right. And I rode through the Mojave Desert, which was, you know, 110 degrees, you know, like 40 something degrees Celsius, and full levers as well. And yeah, it was hot, and I hydrated like hell, and I peed a lot at the end of the day. But it got me thinking, like, are you really any cooler when you're not wearing all that gear? And actually, the science would say you're not. You might have a perception that you are, but the reality is all that hot air, especially when it's that hot, it's just hitting your naked skin. And now, levers don't breathe as well as textiles do in the heat, and actually the chap in the cap, one of the guys that I really like following on YouTube, who talks a lot about gear and all that sort of stuff. I'll put a link to a video he had on this topic. Actually, you're not actually any cooler, and I have actually tried it myself for a few miles. I'm just sort of anal about wearing gear all the time, and he's right. Like, I actually was not any cooler riding in a t-shirt than I was in my full leather. So there's that. I also think, you know, for this motorcycle, I mean, it looks like a motorcycle should look, right? And let's face it, we all like to look good. I just think leather looks just way cooler on a bike like this than a big old textile suit. So, if there's one question that I can absolutely answer about this bike, it's, is it the sort of bike that when you park it in your garage or wherever, you can't help but take a look back as you walk away? And that's probably the most simple test of of any motorcycle and frankly any review is how does it make you feel, and I can confidently answer that, yeah, I totally want to look at this bike when I walk away. The second question I'm kind of answering on this ride, and that is, will it tour? And so far, about 130 miles into this ride, I can confidently say that, yeah, I mean, frankly, any motorcycle will tour. It just comes down to the person on top of it. And, you know, I've toured on everything from Vespas, Lambrettas, Harley Davidsons, Ducati Multistradas, Panigales, to retro or modern retro naked bikes like this. And the reason I feel like this will tour pretty well, despite it not technically being a touring bike, is that first of all, the engine has plenty of get up and go. It's not lacking for power and torque when you need it, when you need to pass a truck or whatever. It doesn't get hot like a V-twin or a parallel twin might get. And you know, right now it is 90 degrees, so it's a little bit over 33, closer to 34 degrees Celsius, and I'm not feeling heat at all from the engine. And the interesting and I suppose somewhat surprising thing for me is that, you know, I've ridden my Ducati Street Fighters and Monsters on roads like this, and the wind and the buffeting is just like being out of control, obviously, because you might think it's obvious because there's no screen. But actually on this bike, with the Shoei RF 1400 that I'm running, I'm not really feeling any impact from the wind at all. And that's actually a really good surprise. I think it's partly the helmet and probably partly the motorcycle, which is interesting to me. In fact, I'd go so far as to say a touring bike with a bad windscreen actually feels worse than this. So there you go. I also run earplugs all the time. I have my earplugs custom molded. Doesn't cost that much. It's about $250 I think. And that helps as well in terms of fatigue. So yeah, so we're in the lowlands here of the North Cascade Pacific Highway, and down here it gets pretty hot. It's almost like, in some parts it's kind of like desert-like. If I was to go more east, we'd literally be riding through the desert. And the bike just feels great. You know, when I open my visor, I'm getting just enough wind in here to, you know, to make me feel good. And you know, it's a really pleasant experience, even if I am stuck behind a bunch of traffic. So this highway eventually gets, you know, twisty enough. So yeah, so far so good. Now, the other question is, you know, in the 130 miles or so I've done on this trip, have I missed cruise control? Well, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with cruise control. I understand why people like it, but I don't trust it, and just call me old-fashioned. Maybe on really long, extended, you know, interstate rides, I can see it, but I just prefer to handle the speed with my right hand, and that served me well at riding thousands of miles around the world. So I don't really miss that. What else? People say that it needs a quick shifter. Maybe again it's just showing my age. I don't think it needs a quick shifter. The thing it should have, which is kind of criminal I think for the price, is heated grips. Come on now, Kawasaki, give me heated grips. You give me heated grips on the SE version of the Ninja 1100, and this is the SE version of the 900RS, so I think you should give all SE customers heated grips. Here you go. Give me my heated grips. So let's just see how it passes. I'm going to take this passing lane now. Into 6th. Yeah, like there's just plenty. I'm not even trying. Really smooth. There's I don't feel any vibration through the pegs or through the throttle. I'm not going to try and pass this truck here. I'm just going to let it go. Maybe 50 years ago, I'm not that old, maybe 30 years ago I would have passed it, but yeah, not anymore. But yeah, I mean that change down into 4th, then up to 5th and 6th was just, effortless. And see, the further east we're getting, the hotter it's getting. So it's 92 degrees now. I've got my visor down. I've got full leather pants, full leather jacket. I have a t-shirt underneath, and I have a Alpine Stars airbag. And is it toasty? Sure, but it's not overly toasty. And as I said earlier, I think a lot of us is mind over matter. The idea of being, for example, with an open face helmet with a t-shirt, just, I mean, other than the fact it's not very safe, it's going to be even hotter, man. Having that hot sun, and hitting your face, hitting your arms. So anyway, that's the end of my rant on all gear all the time. So this is a typical thing that you're going to experience, right? When you're touring on a motorcycle, there's going to be times that are just wonderful and you just got nothing in front of you, and then there's going to be times like this. And when you're in a situation like this, and in the US it has to be a double yellow line on the left before you're allowed to pass, or there needs to be a passing lane. You want to be able to just switch down to a lower gear and then like hammer it past the traffic you need to get by. And this will confidently do that all day long. Just the way that the engine delivers the power, like I said, it kind of feels almost like a twin and a triple had a baby, which, I've felt that way before about V4s, but not inline 4s. And so that's been quite the revelation for me too, is that engine characteristic. You could say that it wants to be cruisy and chill 1 minute, and then it wants to go out and party the next. But it doesn't want to party to the point where you're going to have a massive hangover the next day. You know what I mean? So there's an example of just the immediate pickup, the immediate torque, and that was sort of effortless. In fact, I didn't even need to change gear then, but I did, but I really didn't need to. And that's another characteristic of a inline 4 versus, for example, my V2 Panigale, or even an L-twin Ducati, is that you're constantly working the gears, and that's actually a lot of fun. That's part of the fun. But in a inline 4 and to some degree a V4 too, you're able to just get away with a lot more within an existing rev range. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still revvy, but so there you go. That's a nice little pass, right? Really easy. And now I'm in the sort of open highway. Now there's also a lot of deer and wildlife on these roads. I'm very paranoid about that stuff. So I'm in 6th gear right now. I'm past that traffic. Now I haven't set the suspension up yet the way I would like it. It's feeling a little bit soft in the rear. The front is actually feeling okay. But I do have an appointment with my mate Dave Moss to give it a remote tune. G'day Dave. I actually interviewed Dave on my podcast last year, actually about this time last year. So I should put a link to that up here somewhere and you can go listen to it. My podcast is Kiwi Motor 72, by the way. same as the channel. And Dave is, I call him the suspension whisperer. He's pretty famous here in the US for helping street and track riders with their setup. And he's definitely got a reputation outside the US as well. I know he likes to go to my homeland a lot, New Zealand. All right, so the temperature just dropped like 10 degrees because we're up at a higher altitude now. Now, let's talk a little bit about the ergonomics. It's well set up for me. It's 6 foot. And the thing I appreciate about it is the seat is long, and I think I might have mentioned this before, but the seat is long, which is really nice because I can move my butt around on it really nicely, really easily. You know, if I'm just kind of in old man mode and I'm just cruising, maybe my butt's going to be a little bit further forward. But as I get into like a more twisty or aggressive riding, I'm going to want to move my butt around, and I can do that. So that's nice. These bars have got plenty of room for adjustment. So on this, I actually moved the bars back a little bit, forward a little bit, so I had a little bit more reach, but they're really adjustable for me at my height and my length, you know, I suppose at my reach. Now in terms of the pegs are sort of a neutral position, not cruiser position, not aggressive sport position like at rear sets. But I am riding with the, you know, on the balls of my feet, which is how I like to ride. Gives you more leverage. That's just something that I suppose is a habit for me from riding on the track. Yeah, getting back to touring, I think throw some SW Magitech bags on here. I really like those guys. They don't pay me or anything. I'm not famous enough for them to want to pay me or have me as an affiliate or any of that stuff. I'm just a dude that makes videos on the side, outside of my day job. Yeah, I mean, I'd throw some SW Magitech bags on here, or name your favorite company, and I reckon it would tour really, really well. And you can actually get a screen for it too if you really want to do that. But I think it would tour really well. And I actually think it would tour pretty well with passenger on the back. I mean, obviously it's not going to be like, you know, BMW, RT, you know, level of comfort. So the temperature is now 95 degrees, and you can see over there to my right it gets even hotter because that goes even more into eastern Washington, where it's literally desert. It's hot, really hot. A lot of people don't realize that about Washington State. I think they think of Washington State as being sort of lush and green and raining all the time, like Seattle. And while that is somewhat true for Seattle, although I would say it doesn't rain as much as the movies like to make it out to be, it is definitely not the case for eastern Washington. Hear that engine? Whoa! So the temperature's dropping a little bit now. So we're at what are we at? 82 degrees. So we've dropped a little bit since last time. I think it's probably a good idea to sort of stop off here and take in the view a little bit and see what we got going on. What I always like to do when I'm on an incline like this is make sure that I am parking. First of all, use your rear brake a lot because there's always going to be a little bit of gravel. You don't want to get caught in your front brake, but also make sure you're parked in gear with your side stand opposing the incline, so that when you get off, you're not going to be in a situation where the motorcycle is falling over, which none of us really want. So this time of year there's no snow in the mountains, but straight ahead up here you've got the Stevens Pass ski resort, and down here in the valley you've got all sorts of beautiful stuff going on. So I'm actually going to have a drink, stop recording for a while, and maybe go for a bit of a fly. So I suppose it's time I headed back to Seattle now, and we'll get a bit more footage along the way. But to end the segment, what I really want to do is get on the freeway. So, you know, imagine you've been out on a tour, you've been enjoying the twisties, you've been enjoying sort of the very sort of flexible characteristics of this engine. But then, yeah, the worst part of any tour is the freeway, which usually is for city slickers something that you hit to get home. And it can really bring your whole day down, depending on the traffic and a lot of other things. So I'll end this segment of the series here on that, and give you my thoughts on its freeway manners, I suppose. But there are a few more twisties I want to hit before we get there, so let's go find them. I suppose the question really is, do I sell my Triumph T120 Bonneville? That's the question. And I'm going to do a whole video series on engine types and the way they make you feel and blah blah blah. But I know I've said it a lot, but I tend to find twins to be more excited on the track these days, and less enjoyable for me anyway on the street. Now the T120 Bonneville, as I've said in a previous video, probably isn't the best thing to compare this to. Really, the Speed Twin is probably a better example, just in terms of outright power and sort of where it sits in the category. But yeah, that's the question. And we're about to get to the last twisty of this particular tour, because after this it's just going to be heading to the boring old freeway. And I promised you that I would give you some freeway footage. The last twisty piece of the ride, I will not be stuck behind a car. How is that? So we're about a mile away from the 405 South Freeway, one of the bigger freeways here in the US. On the US coast, we tend to call it the 405 or the 5. And other parts they might say, oh, the I-5 or the Interstate 405. But us West Coasters it's likely to be a little bit different, you know. So we're heading to the 405. And all the craziness that ensues with the inner city, you know, biggish city freeway. I'm going to head over to the carpool lane, which accepts motorcycles as well. And like I was saying to you guys earlier, the wind buffeting on this bike is surprisingly small. Like, I would actually say it's the weirdest thing, but I would actually say it's better than a lot of motorcycles I've ridden with touring screens on them or whatever. And like I said earlier in the video, that's probably because, you know, it's really hard to make the perfect screen, because it's not just about how high you are, it's about your torso length. And some people, you could get 4 people that are 6 feet tall, and they have different torso lengths, and so they're going to feel different levels of wind. So it's not just about purely how tall you are. And so unless you get in a wind tunnel and have a screen specifically made for you, I would say it's pretty hard to find a perfect screen. Which begs the question of, well, what are screens really for, I suppose. But that's a whole nother video probably. But anyway, yeah, on this bike, with no screen and this showy RF 1400 helmet, And my 6-foot frame and torso length, which I have no clue what my torso length is surprisingly comfortable. In fact, I could quite happily just ride all day right now on this freeway with no screen. So that's another part of why I think this bike you can tour on, is it's surprisingly good in the wind. Yeah. Oh, these tires are so nice and sticky, and the engine and the brakes are feeling bedded in really nicely. It's funny how bikes do that. They take a little bit of time. I mean, the engine probably still needs a bit of time, but the brakes are bedded in nicely. The tires are bedded in nicely, especially when it's 94 degrees out. I mean, they're so sticky.
Okay, I know this has been a longer video than I normally do. I hope you've really appreciated this long format style. Spending time with the Z900RS has been more than just another motorcycle test for me. It's been a reminder of why I fell in love with riding in the first place. On paper, it's easy to say that this is simply a modern bike dressed up in retro clothes, but once you throw a leg over it and you realize there's so much more going on, Kawasaki's managed to capture the old school soul and that feeling of a connection to the road and wrap it in a package that's genuinely usable every single day and frankly for touring. The engine, it's got this wonderful spread of torque that makes it different, sort of effortless around town, but the moment you crank it open on a back road like I've been showing you, there's enough surge to put a grin on your face every single time. So it's not intimidating, it's not frantic, it's confident. It's the kind of motor that doesn't beg you to ride flat out but rewards you when you do. Then there's the suspension and handling. And for me, Kawasaki nailed that sweet spot. It's firm enough to keep the chassis planted in the corners, yet forgiving enough that rough pavement doesn't punish you. You don't have to fight it, it just flows, and that makes it a joy for both quick blasts and longer rides, which I've tried to do in these last two videos. And of course the styling. That's where the Z900RS really tugs at your heartstrings. For me, every time you park it, you can't resist but look back at it, and the lines, the paint, the stance. It carries that classic 70s DNA, but without feeling like a museum piece. It's nostalgic without being stuck in the past. Now, is it perfect? No bike is. If you're chasing outright performance, there are sharper, lighter machines. If you're chasing luxury touring comfort, there are better long-distance tools. But that's missing the point. For me, the Z900RS exists in this beautiful middle ground. It's practical enough to ride every day, it's stylish enough to make you proud, and it's soulful enough to keep you excited about the next ride. So for me, it's a motorcycle that makes sense with both long rides, both head and the heart, and it's logical in its reliability, approachable in its manners, and it's emotional in a way that makes you want to ride when the road opens up ahead. And at the end of the day, isn't that what motorcycling is supposed to be about? So the Z900RS isn't just about getting from A to B, it's about the way you get there. And after spending time with it, I can honestly say this is a bike I'd be more than happy to call my own. It's not just a ride, it's an experience that definitely stays with you long after the engine's turned off. So if you like this sort of content, give me feedback. If it's too long, tell me. I really enjoyed bringing this bike to you over the last two videos, and please like, subscribe, and all that fun stuff if you want to see more content like this. Thanks everyone. Have a good one.